Alright, so this week on the podcast, it'll be the weekly review, Zion and his shoe incident, Robert Kraft and his run-in with the law, the Raiders having a new home stadium this year, and the weekly question. Before the video starts, I want to say we are still doing Beyond Beanie. Go on there. Everything's handcrafted, handmade. It is signed by the artist, so you know it's actually made by somebody and that they put time into it, and all of the money goes to help kids, and it's just a great way to help out. Yeah, it helps kids in need with food, dental work, clothing, school supplies, a whole bunch of stuff. So, and it's not that expensive either. It's really reasonably priced. So you want to help out, that is how you can do it. And we have a promo code for that. It's OG25, capital O, capital G, no space 25. So you get that, and I believe you get 25% off, if I'm right. Yeah, 25% off. So I would go check that out. Alright, to start us off this week with the review, we'll be doing the AAF first. They wrapped up their week 3 this week after Birmingham beat Atlanta 28-12. San Diego beat San Antonio 31-11. Salt Lake City beat Arizona 23-15, and Orlando beat Memphis 21-17. Now hopping over to the NHL, Detroit lost the game in overtime on Wednesday night, 4-5 against Chicago. Then they lost again on Friday night to Minnesota, 3-2. Then they lost last night, Sunday night, by a score of 5-3 against San Jose. So they're not doing too well. I think they're on a 4 or 5 game losing streak. So hopefully they can bring this around. But at the same time, this could benefit us because we have the second worst record. Take the top draft pick. I'll be fine with that. We're not making the playoffs. We can't make the playoffs anymore. So just go for tank. That's what I have to say there. Now to MLB and spring training. Detroit won on Saturday in their first spring training game against Toronto, 4-0. Then they lost on Sunday by a score of 6-10 to the Phillies. Then they played today and they tied against St. Louis, 3-3, and that's in 9 because they don't do extra innings in preseason. And then also today they lost. It was their A and B teams playing today, both of them, and they lost 7-12 against Philadelphia again. Now to the NBA, where the Pistons played the Hawks on Friday and won 125-122 in a very close game. It shouldn't have been that close. It was a really high-scoring game the whole way. And the Hawks aren't that good of a team. Then on Saturday, the next night, Detroit beat Miami 119-96. So I'm not sure what happened there with Miami, if they're just that bad of a team, or if the Pistons really showed up to play. Because I don't watch the NBA, ever, because I prefer college basketball. That's going to be our transition over to college basketball, where Purdue won their rivalry match against Illinois by a score of 48-46, tipped in right before the buzzer by Harms. That was a really good game. I watched all of that. Really good basketball. It was a bit sloppy by Carson Edwards. And after his performance that game and a few games in a row now, I'm thinking that we might want to bench him and see if he can come off the bench red hot and then start Eastern instead of him. But I'm not a coach. But that's what I would do, because he's not been too hot lately. Then on Wednesday, that was on Tuesday night. On Wednesday night, Rutgers played Michigan State, and Michigan State was able to win 71-60. They struggled very early on with Rutgers, and Rutgers usually has a pretty strong team, but they aren't that good this year. So I was a bit disappointed to see them struggle to start, but we were able to pull it out in the end. Then on Thursday night, the University of Michigan played Minnesota at Minnesota and won 69-60. So gave them a little bit of momentum going into the Michigan State game. Same with Michigan State. And we'll talk about them more in a minute. Purdue beat Nebraska in another close one, 75-72 on Saturday. And then the biggest rivalry game of this week, and I think of all the Big Ten for college basketball, is Michigan State, Michigan. And Michigan State was able to pull it off at Michigan nonetheless, which Michigan was undefeated in 22 games straight at their home court. Michigan State won 77-70, and that was pretty great coming from a Spartan fan. That was really great. And I think I said this last week on the podcast too, that it was either going to be a really close game with Michigan State winning or it was going to be a total blowout and Michigan wins. And it was a really close game and Michigan State won. So just how I thought. They showed up, they played Michigan State basketball, they barely turned over the ball, and we got some rebounds towards the end of the game. We weren't strong on rebounding, but we weren't sloppy, so it made up for it. And that's always nice. Okay, transitioning from that now to Zion and his incident during the Duke-UNC game, which is probably the hottest, basketball rivalry in college basketball of UNC and Duke. And about 30 seconds into the game, Zion took a step and his shoe just fell apart on him and he sprained his knee. This is because Nike's shoe was glued together instead of stitched and then glued. And even then, it's a bit iffy if you want to play on it. But it wasn't even stitched, it was just glued. So his shoe came right apart. And this was a brand new shoe that he'd only worn for warm-ups. So Nike's a bit of hot water for that. I personally like Nike, but they definitely should not be just gluing shoes, especially if they're going to be worn by basketball players, because this is going to screw up Zion's spot in the draft coming up for the NBA, because he was projected to go number 1. I'm thinking he might be 5 now, or maybe even a bit lower than that. But I'm thinking that he'll be drafted about 5. But it definitely hurts him a lot, and Nike's going to have to figure out some way to make this up to him. So sad to see someone that good go down from an injury, especially from something like that. That's preventable. In other news, Robert Kraft has been charged with soliciting prostitutes. This came as a big shock to me, but apparently he was in a prostitution trafficking ring or something like that. Yeah, really weird. I wonder what's going to happen with the Patriots after this, because he will be facing jail time, I believe, for this, and that's going to be interesting to see what happens with the Patriots. I'm not sure if he'll have to sell or not. He might actually have to sell the Patriots, but I'm not sure. The NFL hasn't come out with anything about that, but it will definitely be interesting to see. Then, also in the NFL, the Raiders have re-signed with the Oakland Coliseum for at least one more year there, with an extension option if their stadium isn't ready by 2020 for them to play in. This isn't a big surprise, because the Raiders didn't have a stadium, and yeah, their fans weren't too happy with them leaving. I wouldn't be either. I'm not happy with them leaving. I want them to stay in Oakland instead of moving to Vegas, but it's a bit late now. But at least Oakland will have them 1 or 2 more years, so that would be nice for them. I actually think that's it for this week, besides the weekly question. I can't think of any other big news in sports. Yeah, I can't think of any big ones. So the weekly question is on the pitch clock for the MLB. Do I support it or not? Yes and no on that. It's not a clear answer for me because I enjoy I like the fact that they're trying to speed up the games, because for me, I went from watching a lot of Tigers games to now I haven't watched that many because they're just so long and boring to just sit there and watch because they take so long. But at the same time, I don't like the pitch clock because, as Max Scherzer was saying earlier in the week, it does screw with the game a lot. But I do think that people will adjust to it, and they will. And it'll be integrated into the game, and it will become common, and it will actually do or help the game progress a lot. And anything that helps out the game, I am for. So I'm personally 50-50 on this, but let me know what you guys think about it. Yeah. I could really see either one working, yes and no, for a pitch clock, no pitch clock. As long as it actually speeds up the game a considerable amount of time, I'm all for it. So, yeah, that's what I gotta say there. Yeah, make sure to check out Beyond Beanie, and our promo code is OG25. I think that's it. Oh, we put out some new edits on the channel, on the Instagram channel, and I believe the Facebook page. Maybe not on Facebook, but at least on the Instagram. I put out some new edits, so go ahead and go check those out. I personally, I made them, but I like them a lot. I think they look pretty nice. Let me know your feedback on that. I think that about wraps it up for us. So I will see you guys next week. Yeah. So, see you.